When it comes to climate change and climate alarmism, it's almost pointless fighting back. We're overwhelmed by it, aren't we? But I'm going to keep pointing it out because, facts matter. Now, people hate to challenge this stuff because then you're called a climate denier and you're mocked and shunned and even abused. So for the record, yes, the climate is changing. It's always changing. It's always either warming or cooling. And there is evidence to suggest that, yes, we might be in a warming phase. And yes, I accept the science that human-produced carbon emissions can exacerbate this warming. But the extent to which this is happening is an ongoing matter of scientific research, obviously. But the last thing we need to do is exaggerate, catastrophise and frighten people, especially children. For instance, why don't we see media and others ever point to some of the undeniable benefits of global warming, which reduces the number of deaths due to cold every year and extends growing seasons and agricultural production in colder climates, or how recent studies confirm that extra carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is fueling a greening of the planet, which is good for the environment, obviously, and agriculture, of course. Anyway, I mention this because the CSIRO here in Australia has released its latest State of the Climate report. And as usual, it's all couched as bad news.
And globally, 2023 was the warmest year on record. Australia is also continuing to warm, in line with global trends. The warming has led to an increase in the frequency of extreme heat events.
Well, they're the scientists, and that's what they say, in cahoots with their comms people, I guess. But the point is, they don't give you all the information. They don't share information that provides context or that might fuel proper, informed scientific scepticism about their claims. For instance, in that clip, you would have seen that the graphs started from 1910. And indeed, in the report itself, we are told that Australia's climate has warmed by an average of 1.5 degrees since national records began in 1910. Well, national records did not begin in 1910. In many places, they go back many decades earlier. But our Weather Bureau only uses the records from 1910 onwards. It has its own scientific reasons for doing this, consistency of measurement devices and the like. But the fact remains it chooses to ignore earlier temperatures. This means that one of the hottest and driest decades, the 1890s, is left out of the records, some would say conveniently. The warming trend might seem much lower or even disappear altogether if earlier temperatures were included. For instance, as you can see in this graph from the Institute of Public Affairs, the temperature record in Darwin would look entirely different if the early recordings, shown here in green, were included. Similar analysis can and has been compiled for many other sites. But it gets worse. What the Weather Bureau and the CSIRO also don't talk about enough is that the records they use have been homogenised, that is, they've been adjusted. So many temperature recordings from the early part of the 20th century, after 1910, have been reduced. They've been adjusted downwards because they reckon they must have been improperly recorded. So many maximum temperature records announced now, these days, are actually not the highest temperature readings from those locations. The new records are not the highest temperatures recorded, but temperatures that are higher than what the earlier readings have been reduced to. Now, I'm not suggesting anything improper. The scientific community justifies these adjustments. But I am suggesting a lack of transparency and an unwillingness from the Weather Bureau and the CSIRO to discuss these matters. It's important information because it underscores the lack of certainty. The Weather Bureau and the CSIRO prefer to keep it simple, certain and scary.